I was never into the whole divine feminine thing, but I couldn't escape it. It's everywhere. Retreats, Instagram posts, goddess circles, expansive courses promising to teach you how to magnetize your man by surrendering and becoming softer. Let's talk about the divine feminine and whether it's actually empowering or just patriarchy in soft lighting. Every time I get confronted with this concept, something in me recoiled. And not because I'm against softness, but because I'm deeply suspicious of anything that tells, especially women who've already been taught to be small, that their power comes from shrinking even more. I do not identify as a woman. I am non-binary. But of course, I'm assigned female at birth, and I grew up being told to be quiet, to be nice, to be helpful. Now there's a whole spiritual narrative saying the same thing, just with prettier words and more glitter. What frustrates me the most is how accepted and normalized it is. It's spoken like truth, as if the only spiritual path for women must be one of softness, silence, submission. But speech shapes reality. That's one of the beliefs in my own spiritual practice, especially in witchcraft. So when we keep reinforcing these roles through the words we use, the rituals we follow, the influencers we found, we are casting spells on ourselves. There are a lot of goddesses no one puts on their vision boards. Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction whose power lies in chaos and ego death. Lilith from Jewish folklore who refused to submit and was demonized for it. Skamit, the Egyptian goddess of war and healing who burns with solar rage. Oya, the Yoruba goddess of storms and transformations who commands change and tears down structures that no longer serve. Hecate, the Greek goddess of crossroads and magic who walks between worlds and isn't afraid of the dark or the unknown. Durga, a warrior goddess in Hindu mythology, known for slaying demons and riding a lion into battle, powerful, composed, and uncompromising. These are all expressions of the so-called feminine, but they don't submit, they don't soften, they don't whisper, they roar, they are loud. Why aren't women not invited to embody them? Why are women not taught that rage can be sacred, that destruction can be clarifying, that wholeness includes fire as much as water? And yes, while we have this TikTok trend of feminine rage, let's be real here, feminine spirituality is a business. I covered that already to some degree in my previous videos, but here in terms of woman gender-based perception, this is an entire new level. What sells isn't rage or sovereignty or confrontation. What sells is softness, obedience dressed up as empowerment, passively reframed as wisdom. You have probably seen it as well. Goddess coaching programs, magnetism courses, call in your whatever, $2,000 retreats to awaken your inner feminine. What are they really selling? The same old idea that your value comes from how well you support others, how receptive you are, how pleasing you are. It's all carefully curated. Feminine power, but make it Instagrammable. That's not spirituality, that's conditioning with incense. That's capitalism covered in crystals. What stings is that so many women are still looking to men to tell them how to be spiritual. I've seen it again and again, women deferring to male teachers who preach about the sacred feminine, but never actually live it. Men who build entire empires teaching women how to open, how to heal their masculine wounds, how to be in their softness, And it's the same patriarchal dynamic in a different costume. Because if your spiritual growth depends on being validated by a man or shaped by his idea of what femininity should be, you're not awakening, you're being managed. And often the same men avoid doing their own emotional work. They use their embodiment as branding, while they still expect women to orbit around them. They speak about polarity while staying in control. They demand vulnerability without ever offering it back. I tend to do that myself. Is it only like, it's to some degree, it's a trauma response to be overly helpful, right? I was moderator on Twitch and Discord for someone who claimed to be a very awakening spiritual man, and looking at his selection of mods, it was mostly women. There were like 2 males in there, and to those he had a very special connection that the women were excluded from. And he kept saying that he is doing the work, but in the end, we were left with picking up his slack, basically. We were managing the Discord, we were managing community nights, we were answering and welcoming the newcomers in chat, and it was not like it was too many chats for him to read. He was just busy ranting. So the core of the community building was still our task as moderators, which, yes, to some degree it is, of course, but not if it becomes a pattern. Anyways, I digress. That experience is what got me thinking, and my conclusion was most women don't need less ego. They need more. They've been trained to doubt themselves, to serve others, to seek permission. They've been taught that being self-possessed is selfish, that being assertive is aggressive, that being clear is being cold. We are taught to downplay our wins, to apologize for our desires, to shrink our ambitions so we don't make others uncomfortable. So of course the ego gets framed as dangerous. But what if the real danger is never getting to know it? A healthy ego is what lets you ask for more. Leave a bad relationship. Walk away from a teacher who crosses your boundaries. Start something new even when people don't believe in you. It's what anchors your sense of self. The ego is what lets you build boundaries, say no or say yes on your own terms. It gives you a spine. And when women are constantly asked to dissolve, to surrender, to trust others instead of themselves, then reclaiming ego is an act of spiritual rebellion. True spiritual growth isn't about dissolving yourself into a puddle of compassion. It's about knowing when you are what you want and what you won't accept anymore. It's about making choices, not waiting for permission. I've talked plenty in other videos about how gender isn't a spiritual binary, so I won't repeat that here. But what I will say is we need to stop framing power as gendered at all. Your strength doesn't have to be called masculine to be valid. Your intuition doesn't have to be labeled feminine to matter. When we drop these labels, what we're left with is something more honest. People learning how to be whole in a world that is constantly trying to split us apart. You might have been taught that surrender is your spiritual path, that softness is your highest form, but maybe your path looks different. Maybe it includes rage, boundaries, directness, saying no, saying yes to yourself. That is not the opposite of spirituality. That is spirituality. If you ever felt boxed in by the divine feminine narrative, or if you've been quietly questioning why so much of feminine spirituality feels more like obedience than freedom, you're not alone. Let me know in the comments what your experience has been. Have you ever felt like empowerment was being sold to you in a way that still asks you to shrink? If you want to keep unlearning the spiritual narratives that hold us back, make sure to subscribe, because I am not done questioning, and I hope you join me on that journey. Take care. See you next time.